message from Rasmus that the Indonesian government wants to have stuff. But yeah, the same. And when somebody says that Indonesian, okay, what part of the 300 islands you mean, and which part of the government?
Sidste gang, eller er den god nok?
I know that feeling, but don't worry, it is me.
How was yesterday?
I wasn't there yesterday.
Okay, so actually
I just came back yesterday. And then I have a slight cold, as you might hear.
you'll be microphone, so
And you arrived today or yesterday?
yesterday we did a live stream from
What else there would be? You are like telling that there is something else.
That's good.
Yes, I was about to just introduce him.
Yeah, we already did that. I was looking for him.
We got him a couple of months back. Denmark.
That's good. Good to have you here.
We are also focusing a lot on the region. We said, okay, time is a good
Much smaller, but still with a great presence.
Live in Copenhagen. Tend to see this
At night, we were on every third ship from Cloud. A little bit competition to editor.
That's actually quite fun.
Now we have a quite strong outcome with paper.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's for the market.
And with the industry going like this,
I have never done a pharmacy ever before.
no, they used to do it.
Hej. Det er Lasse. Det er Lasse. Jeg hedder Nicolai.
Are you David Hunt?
I am.
I didn't reach back to you.
It's okay. Everybody's been crazy busy.
Yeah, exactly. I saw you calling me.
Right, let's say hi. Hey. Nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Hey, Johan.
Hey,
Happy to see you.
See you.
All good? All good. All good. Time you as well? Yeah.
No, I didn't. I just came by taxi, but I spoke to the team over on the vessel side. Yeah, exactly. I have to try later. Okay, all set for the day?
Yeah. Good. Yeah. The only thing that the coffee is the new water. I didn't find my own bottle.
Oh, there's no water.
There's no coffee, right?
Oh,
yeah. I drink a lot of coffee, but there is limit on everything.
Yeah. Just transportation during the morning, and then you're all coffeeed up. So now,
Yeah, I'm also on this one.
Yeah, just like. Exactly, same everything, right?
You have it also. Everyone else, the economy is going down now. Travel restrictions are coming. So
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. A little bit of, the hair on the other side. No, they will cut my hair also. I was on my captain hat on.
Ja, så den her, det er sådan set smart nok. Så
Nice venue. Oh, yeah, look at that. Xavier.
ja. Og det er ikke godt.
Thank you. Perfect, thank you.
Er det sådan her? Ja. Sådan der. Og der. Ja. Tak. Er det korrekt? Eller
Yes, we do. Are you staying or are you going? Okay, I don't think we'll have time, but there is a roving microphone in case we have time for questions. Depends how the conversation flows. Sometimes it can go quieter.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll try to keep it here, and then I'll ask.
Tak for det.
Skal jeg gøre noget her? Okay.
Nu vælger den rigtigt.
Okay.
Yeah, we're all good. I think we'll get to go.
Og så var der en håndhold, som bare kan...
Jeg tror, at David har the mic.
Yeah, we have enough microphones. You have your microphone?
Yeah, we don't have only 4.
We use this?
We have this.
Would this be okay?
You want we can switch if it's okay?
Oh, I'm okay.
He's the pop star in him.
Yeah, exactly.
Ja, speak up.
Ja, der skal bare tage den på dansk. Har jeg taget den omvendt på?
Sorry, Peter. So we have, it sounds like a long time, but it goes very quickly because we all have interesting things to say. So we'll try and move things along a little bit quickly. That said, if we have time, maybe also we can take...
Det virker bare unaturligt, og den der skulle være den flade side skulle være den.
It is.
So maybe again, if we can be a little bit more concise. So we start with just an overview question, then we look at the challenges, then we look at the opportunities and the things happening on the ground that you guys are all doing out on the ground, and then a call for policy. What do we want to see changing? Go back to your point. The technology exists. Let's prove that, and then let's have the conversation. What do we need from government and from policy to help us all to move the transition forward? And then if we have time, then we can take some from the floor. We also have the live stream. So again, just be conscious, I guess, a little bit of there's other people outside of the room. Not that it makes much difference, but
Okay.
Yeah, I think we can be more consistent than the downstairs.
Yeah, hopefully. Hopefully.
Stop plads.
So again, I'll start, well, after a very brief introduction, ask everybody to give their own personal bio.
Yeah.
Again,
Så jeg kommer
But
til
you
at
will-
være
you
med
will
til at
do
trykke
that,
mute
right?
I'll ask
knappen,
you,
tror jeg.
I'll ask
Okay,
everybody,
okay.
and then if you can
Det går
just a very quick
Yeah,
introduction.
of course.
So I think we all have a place.
Så har vi da lidt.
Det skulle godt at se, du er old fashion, så ser jeg så moderne ud, ikke?
ja. Det er bare good old paper.
Totalt unfair. Jeg har plejer altid af papir. Nu skulle jeg faktisk lige prøve i dag at køre det.
Ja, men det er også godt.
Should we take this table over as well?
Yeah, maybe give us more room actually a little
Yeah.
bit. So I'm going to fit another table so we have a little bit, everybody's not crammed around the same table. Put this one in the middle, and then we have not everybody's too crowded around them on table.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
Oh, do you not have water?
You just have to speak loud, Lasse.
As we have a roving microphone.
If you are next to me, we can then
You can share.
Yeah.
We can share.
Yeah.
And this is always on, so we can overrun this. Yeah.
Yeah, if you jump in next to Kimo, then he has the roving microphone. I'm not sure if we're going to hopefully get counted in.
Oh, I can also stand over here in the corner. It's better to be outside. Spotlight.
Do you have a counting for the live stream? Are you just going to, we just started, do you have a counting?
I have the microphone, so hold on.
We have the sharing
This is the
economy
best
over
way.
here.
Panel, but I'm talking.
This is the best boy band you've ever seen at an IEA event anyway. Welcome everybody to this session on urban land transport at the energy efficiency.
Is it on?
Is the microphones working? Yes? Okay. Yes, welcome very to this urban land transport session for the IEA Global Southern Global Energy Efficiency Conference here in Sonderburg. Welcome to our live stream guests as well as those in the room, and of course to my panel. We have a really important and a fascinating topic area, but we have a limited time, so I'm going to ask our panelists to make a quick introduction to who they are, and then we'll try and engage as many conversations and questions as possible, and if we have time, even invite some from the floor. So if I may start, Lasse?
Thanks. Is it on? Right. First of all, sorry for my poor voice. I have a slight cold today, so I'll probably run out of voice anyway, so I will do it very briefly. My name is Lasse Altman. I'm head of e-mobility at ABB Denmark. I'm actually an e-mobility veteran, I can say now. I've been working within the e-mobility sector since 2009 in various positions, but since 4 years ago, I started working for ABB. So my focus is on infrastructure solutions, and especially, I would say, intelligent infrastructure solutions for e-mobility.
Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Kimmo Rauma and I'm working for Danfoss, and in there the division Danfoss Electron, which is the part that takes care of the mobile electrification. So I have 3 business units in there, which is off-highway sector, on-highway sector and marine sector. And this is under my responsibility, and even I'm not looking like the veteran, I still have about 20 years because I started up my own company in this industry, so have been seeing from the small to the big. So thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Peter Westergaard, and I'm representing Bitzer Electronics today, part of the Bitzer Group. We are having products focused on energy efficiency. That's all from me.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'm Rune Noack. I am responsible for transport policy at the Confederation of Danish Industry. We represent companies who within the entire value chain of green mobility, from technology companies who produce the solutions to energy companies who have produced the new fuels, and of course transport companies who are dying to start this green transition.
Thank you.
My name is Nikolai. I'm representing a company located here in Sonderborg, partly, called Better Energy. And we are actually energy producers, independent power producers. So that's what we do, and we are building solar, large-scale power parks. But of course, we have also a lot of focus on using the energy in a clever way.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you very much. Clearly, we have live in challenging times. The recent IPCC report clearly showed that we're running out of time to make the big differences needed to make our society and our planet a more livable place. We have therefore big challenges, but also huge opportunities, and I think it's good to see the balance of both of those things. We can't deny the challenges, but equally we have to see the opportunities. And one of the things that often gets, I guess, mentioned when you start to talk about electrification of transport, one is the products and the technology, we'll do that afterwards, but also is charging infrastructure. How do we supply energy to all of these vehicles in various shapes and guises? So I'd like to take some first thoughts on what you see as some of the fundamental things we need to see or are key to the success of EV charging infrastructure. Lasse, your thoughts?
Yeah. First of all, I would like to start on a happy note by stating I think to many people, but not all people, obvious fact that e-mobility is here to stay. And actually the technology we're using on the e-mobility side is actually much more mature than I think many politicians realize. We will see development in e-mobility technologies over time, but it will not be dramatic changes, it will be developments. My point here is that I think the major obstacle that I see right now is not that we lack private investors, it's not that we lack technology, it's actually we need the politicians now to pave the way.
Yeah.
And we need them to be quick about it, because it's already starting. And if we want to do this in a good, intelligent way, we need them not to be barriers, but to be enablers, really. So we need a much quicker strategy from politicians to make sure that this will happen in an optimal way. Again, realizing the simple fact that this is going to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. And again, I think there will be an ask at the end of the session from everybody in terms of what we would like to see from governments and politicians to enable this transition. But Kimmo?
The question is about the charging infrastructure. Yes, just to make sure. From my point of view, I think that one thing needs to be clear for everyone. We have the electric grid everywhere, basically, at least in Europe. So it's available. So now the question is that how we get the connection between the grid and the vehicle. So it's not too difficult. We just either need to have the access points, which we have already, and we just need to implement them around. But the second point I also want to state out here, who are here, you can go outside and there is a nice Volvo truck out there. And in that one, it's already a change of the mentality there, that it's built in the truck, so you can grid connect that anywhere in the utility, wherever you have a point. And that's also a capability that can now charge that vehicle anywhere with the power that is capable. And of course, I'm proud as well of that product. So just that there is different ways, and basically the technology is not the thing that is preventing it. It's just to make the action.
Yeah, picking up on that point, if we jump over to Nikolai, in terms of Kimmo's point there that energy is ubiquitous in Europe, or at least power and electricity is ubiquitous, but there are, of course, some challenges in certain rural locations. You obviously work in this area where you can bring renewable technologies into that.
One of the largest issues and challenges that we have is actually the power grids, as I see it, because we need there's a lot of chargers coming into the market now, a lot of production coming in as well, and that is the bottleneck, as I see it, is the limitations in the grids. And that's why also that we are more and more focusing on having the production at the location where it's actually needed. So we are actually not spending our time and money on transporting all this power or fuels around the world, but actually producing it where it's going to be used.
Produces the power of
and that is due to the limitations in the power grids.
Yeah, we'll come on to that because I think that's an important question. Yeah. Peter, again, you, I guess, look at things from a slightly different perspective of actually reducing the energy consumption to some extent that trucks rely on. What are your thoughts in terms of charging infrastructure and the supply for the rollout of particularly heavier vehicles?
Yeah, because if you look at the challenges here and break it down and say what is actually what can we do right now and how can we actually try to get started on this right now, then looking at good transport and more specific on food transport, where you need a refrigerated unit to move your goods around. Then today, just alone in Europe, we have 300,000 of these refrigeration units. Each one of them, they are consuming around 4 liters of diesel each hour that they are cooling the foods down. That's 1.2 million liters of diesel each hour, only in Europe. And this will increase because there will be need for more and more food. People are, the populations in cities are growing. So why not start to actually focusing on actually make efficient cooling something we should win on in Europe, and actually focus on strategic places to be able to charge these refrigeration units in Europe.
Perfect. We'll come back a little bit more to that solution, which I think is quite innovative, because, like you said, more food transportation and, of course, warmer climates need for more refrigeration. Rune, from your perspective of your membership, again, what are some of the things that you're seeing, or one of the things that you're being asked for to sort of support this transition?
Yeah, well, I think it's important that when we talk about the infrastructure, that it needs to be able to supply 2 things for the transport companies or for the rest of the society. We have to deliver high mobility of people, of freight, of goods, which is absolutely a necessity in a modern society, and even with increasing urbanization. And the other thing is, of course, the decarbonizations. So you have to deliver on both key factors if you want to make this green transition a success. And in regard to the power grid, there's a big difference between personal cars and trucks. Obviously, it's a difference if you have I think many people or many transport companies want to charge at home, but that's a big difference if you only have to charge one personal car, or even 100 trucks who have to be ready next morning to deliver goods to the customers. So the power grid, as you said, is very important if you want to increase the electrification of the transport sector indeed.
Exactly. Yeah, very much so. I'm always keen to focus on the opportunities and what exists, because I think we should, and because it genuinely does. But equally, as I say, we shouldn't shy from the challenges or the barriers that exist. So again, maybe we just get some of which have been touched on, but just get a flavour for what you see as the key barriers that affect your business or your organisation that you're involved with in delaying this transformation. Again, Nikolai, perhaps start with you.
I'm not sure I understand your question, David.
What are the barriers that you see that are inhibiting the rollout of mass fleet electrification, for example?
Yeah, we have touched a little base on that, but as we see it, it's still the grids, because there's a lot of power. Really a lot of power is going to be needed.
Is it a technical problem or more of an issue? Because I know in large parts of Europe where we're active, it's actually permissions and regulations to connect to the grid rather than actually the capacity of the grid. I know that also is an issue in some places, but what are you seeing?
Yeah, but from our business, we are a producer, so we are actually building these power plants and get them then grid connected to the grid. Saying that's a long process and really a lot of regulations and a lot of technical stuff to be done. Mm-hmm. Having that said, when we have these grid connections, I think we should combine them with electrical charging, because we have the production of the power right there at that spot, and we have the grid connection already done. And that goes also for the windmills, because they also have the grid connection right there.
But okay, we'll come back to that, because again, one of the things I see is often it's not a case of not having the ability to build a solar farm or wind farm, for example, but it's the grid connection and the permissions to do that, which are often inhibiting factors, which clearly is a policy issue that we can perhaps touch on. Yeah. Rune, again, any particular thoughts, just briefly, on some of the challenges that your members are facing or bringing to your attention?
Well, I think when we talk about personal cars, I think one thing you have to bear in mind, it takes time to shift the entire fleet we have. We're expecting to have 1 million electric and plug-in hybrids in Denmark in 2030, but we will still have more than 2 million with a combustion engine still in 2030. For trucks, price and cost is obvious a barrier. The electric truck is at current time probably 3 times as expensive as an ordinary diesel truck. Who's going to pick up that bill? Is it the buyers of transport services? Is it transport companies? Or is it support schemes from the public, which is needed? And the last part, electrification is very important in urban areas, but we also need other alternative fuels for some of the long hauls, that being hydrogen, power to X, biofuels, whatever. But electrification is obviously very important in urban areas.
Yeah. I think we touched on this in a conversation yesterday around the actual, the owners of diesel trucks don't pay the true cost of running their vehicle when we look at what goes around that, and in terms of emissions and pollution, etc. So again, that may be something which we can touch on, but let's also go to Peter in terms of, again, just briefly, some of the challenges that you're seeing, which in your mind are inhibiting the more speedy rollout of fleet transportation.
Yeah, because if we take the commercial transport, both passengers and also trucks, then of course price is one thing which could be helped with some, I would say, governmental support. But also you need to know that they will not be that efficient as they are today. They will not be able, it will take longer time for them to charge their trucks. They will be able to drive less distance than they do today. So the whole supply chain will be less efficient, and that will be an issue. So I think we should turn around and then look at what can we then do, because is it then the battery that needs to be more efficient? Is it we need to increase the capacity of the battery, or should we also look at other ways to actually make energy efficiency? If you take, for instance, a battery, we all know that when you are cooling down the cabin of our car or the truck, then you spend energy. So if you take a battery and say, let's extend it with 5%, make it 5% more efficient on the capacity, then this will make 20 kilometers more in distance. But if you take a compressor with CO2, a natural compressor with CO2 compressor, then you will actually be able to increase the distance with around 160 kilometers. So 38% efficiency. So it's a matter of also looking at about energy efficiency, not only the barriers that we have today.
Yeah, no, energy efficiency is of course fundamental, but also I think sometimes also is business models and actually how you conduct business. And going back to your charging, you just run your businesses differently because you have to. Kimmo, what are your thoughts?
I would like to point out just a few things. When we talk about fleets and trucks and the heavy duty, the legislation is not there. We just saw that the European Union voted that they will ban, but it's every time about passenger cars because it's what is interest, and that's also easy to say that who is paying the bill. It's the end user anyhow. And car is anyhow not used. It's 96% on the yard. It doesn't matter. Basically, it's as useless as necklace in principle. So now when there is no legislation in place for the heavy-duty part, that's not driving the change.
Yeah.
So there should be the same legislation for the heavy-duty as there is for passenger cars. There is no difference, and they are used every day in the cities. And I want to opponent a little bit about your statement about that it's not possible and they are not going to the same distances. That's not true. We have calculated with several OEMs we are serving that everything what is logistic handled in the cities today can be done with full electric trucks immediately. It's not about the technology, it's just that there needs to be legislation that you cannot use anything else, and then it will happen. Yeah. Everything is ready for that.
Yeah, legislation and education, I think also. Awareness of these things. That's it.
Two challenges, but they're both related in my mind to legislation as well. We talk about the grid challenge. So the simple fact that we cannot charge all these electric vehicles at the same time without massively investing in the grid capacity, and there's really basically no need for that. I think we need to realize the simple fact that we can charge electric vehicles intelligently, reducing the investment needed in the grid, and someone needs to take charge of this. Someone needs, and by someone I definitely mean politicians, someone needs to ensure that we are not over-investing in the grid. It will simply be too costly to do this transition if we just want to charge every vehicle at the same time.
Yeah.
We can do that in a much more intelligent way. And again, this is not something we have to invent. We have the basic technology for this, but there needs to be a frame condition for this. So there needs to be some legislation regulating this, and it needs to be in place already now, basically.
Very quickly, yeah. I do actually have some sympathy for politicians, unlike many, I guess, because things are moving so fast. You know, technologies are moving so fast, and governments traditionally, by nature of having to be cautious, move slowly. And I think there's a disconnect there. So I think one of the things that comes across from my activities is that, again, there's that politicians are wary of making choices because is it there? And often they don't aware of what's available, but also what's next. Maybe hydrogen will become the thing. Maybe something else will become the thing, and that leads to inertia because we're actually then not making decisions. So what I'd like to do now is just touch on what is happening on the ground. What are your companies, organizations seeing and doing? Which mean this, like you say, the technology exists. Examples of us all around us, trucks, boats, and everything else. So again, let's start with actually going in reverse. Lassi, your thoughts on what is it that's actually available, and what is available now that enables us to go forward with this transition immediately.
Yeah, but again, I would say that the technology is here. I mean, we're looking into refinement of technology, but it's here. But what we face, I would say, every single day from ABB perspective is a massive amount of customers, private companies that are willing to invest in this, but feel a certain uncertainty, especially based on what will happen, not on the technology side, but on the legislative side. So my appeal will really be, again, I also sympathize with politicians here, but we really need politicians to make a stable environment for these private companies to invest in.
Thank you.
They want to, but they are afraid what will happen tomorrow if legislations are changed by tomorrow. Their investment can be lost.
Yeah.
So my appeal would really be from politicians: please make a long-term plan, a stable investment environment that these companies can invest in and feeling secure about their investments.
Yeah, I think the money's there, isn't it? And external money, so it's not about governments paying for everything. Of course, there is. We'll talk a little bit more about where they can perhaps put some money behind the transition also, but it's not all about that. There's private money available. Kimmo.
Well, you asked about what is available now, and of course I'm proud to be here today because almost everything you see moving around is done by our company here today. So we have here, of course, ferries, we have their transport vessels, but when we talk about the land transport, we have here Volvo Trucks is here presenting already full electric truck. It's really the one that you can use today. You can buy it today. You can charge it from any grid connection. You don't need to have special chargers. You can do it overnight. Then we have here all the heavy duty stuff we are presenting here, wheel loaders. We are presenting here also heavy duty excavators. Everything is full electric. And just that everybody understands that why full electric is better and why electrification is better. The energy used for doing the work is reduced 70%, 70, when we go for full electric. So everything that is used as energy will be reduced 70 to make the same work. So there's no question about that electrification is the solution. It is the only solution that will change this because of this efficiency. So and whatever applications there are, we have done everything what is moving in the cities. So when you see some work machine or anything moving in the city, we have already electrified that and demonstrated that it's doable, it's financially doable, and it's viable today.
Yes.
So that's not the question anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Peter.
At BITS Electronics, we have, during the last couple of years, developed key components, electric components for cooling down or electrifying the refrigeration unit. And we have a 40-feet container outside that I hope you will have a chance to look at later. Some of my colleagues will be out there. And we have also cooled down some beverages, cold beers, which probably you will need afterwards. Yes, you can ask all the questions there as well.
Always a good selling point. Thank you. Before we get a business perspective, Nikolai, from a company perspective, what are you doing and creating to make this change?
Yeah, we have all these many millions of green kilowatt hours from our production facilities, right? And there's a lot of renewable coming into the grids now, wind, solar, in one big mix. And we have to think hardly about how to use that energy in the right way. And we also see now, even during the daytime from 10 to 2, when we have the highest production, low prices, very low prices, sometimes negative prices. So what can we do with that kilowatt hour in that time? And that one of that solution could be to supply the chargers. And that's also what we are planning to do. And actually later today, there is a field trip to our office just located 5 minutes away, where we can actually show how this can be a combination with a medium-sized solar park, 2 megawatts, roughly, and a supercharger from ABB, where we can show how we can use that energy right at the spot where it's produced. And that's a whole key, I think, in energy efficiency in the transport sector, is that if you have the power from the production facility, that is 100%. On an electrical vehicle, at least a personal vehicle, we can have maybe 75% on the wheel right there. But if we have to transport it around, then we have less efficiency on the wheel of the car. That's one of the key issues here.
Important point. I mean, from the sort of perspective of your organisation or your role within the Danish industry, what are you doing to support your members, or what are you seeing in a positive way that's enabling this transition to take place?
Well, first and foremost, I would say it's impressive to see the innovation in transport at the moment, both in Denmark and in Europe. It's really impressive. I think for logistics companies, energy efficient logistic company is a competitive logistic company. You have to be energy efficient if you want to be competitive. That is the whole core of logistics company. And they move with that and work with that every day. But if you are buying transport service, and you have, I think if you're an industry company, you have 100 million Danish crowns to invest in green transition, you will look, where do I get most CO2 reductions from my investment? And that's not always in the transport sector. They start maybe in buildings and other parts of the investment. So I think we need a sector integration in between the energy sector, the transport sector, and the industry as well, if we want to make the green transition of transport come to life, so to speak, or
Absolutely.
speed up.
Yeah, I think touching on your point, it's around, it's not silos, because we have to, and increasingly both the technology, digital and physical, is integrating, and all of these solutions are important in terms of how we go about our business, not just in terms of the products and systems that we use. Let's talk around, I guess, requests for education, because quite often it's a case of people don't invest because they don't know what is out there, what exists, and we've touched on some of those things. And of course, we always beat up the politicians around, let's create some legislations, and pretty much everybody said, please do something. What is the something? So I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit and ask you briefly each, what would you like to see from governments, municipalities, from organizations, from a policy or a subsidy sort of situation? Lasse?
Yeah, first of all, I think I would like to see politicians recognizing the actually quite large experience we have within the mobility sector already now. We've seen over the last years that the interest in e-mobility from a politician point of view has picked up. We have probably reached a situation now where most politicians recognize the fact that it will become a fact. But we have a lot of experience actually already from the industry that could be utilized by politicians, and there's no need to invent everything from the bottom, and there's especially no need to invent something from other sectors that are already out of date and not really compliant with e-mobility. So I would definitely recommend that these experiences that has been accumulated over the last decade, from the very small scale to now increasing size of scale from many companies, are utilized when making up this future legislation that we need in this sector. And there are a number of examples why this will be important. I would like to mention a funny little thing, not to bully politicians, but we had a discussion later on, earlier this year, from Danish politicians that they would like to have stickers on chargers, so highlighting what sort of plug was under each sticker. I guess it comes from old petrol companies, where you could take diesel or petrol and do it the wrong way around. And they were basically asking every charge point operator to go out and put stickers on all their chargers at tremendous cost, probably, for no reason at all, because as everyone who works with e-mobility would know, is that you cannot place the wrong plug in the wrong car. It's simply not possible. There's no need. And this is just one silly, maybe small example, but my point is, let's use the experience we already have now. It's there, it's available.
The education piece is absolutely critical, I think, to enable that understanding. It's easy to be critical of people who have that misunderstanding, because a lot of the thinking is on how things were, like you say, and you could often get the wrong choices at a petrol pump. Kimmo, particular, anything, in terms of actual physical suggestions for support from governments and organizations?
Thank you, David.
I try and keep it to 5
minutes. I will have two clear ones, and the other one is that please consider other than passenger cars. Remember that the heavy-duty part is the key part. They are used every day in every city of our areas. So please focus on that one and enlarge the legislation and in support to that area as well. The second part is which is picking me quite often, is that I hear the response from everybody that, okay, the battery technology needs to develop this and this much, and then we are ready. That's not true. The technology is ready today, and we can do everything today, and the payback time is already there. So please just make sure that the surroundings and the legislation is supporting this. But I don't want to hear any statement that the batteries or the technology is not ready.
Thank you. Peter?
Yeah. And I think besides this, and I think actually we should look at the standards for energy efficiency in the heavy transport, because reducing energy will make the batteries drive even longer.
Okay, thank you. McLean?
Yeah, for us, because in this case, with this transport sector, we are the investors in this, right? So for us, it's very important that the environment is very stable, being an investor. For example, the facility here in Sønderborg cost 2-3 million euros to have the solar park, the charging station, and everything. That's for different purpose, but also for the transport sector. And that's just, it's important for us that the investor environment is very stable, so they will not be changing tariffs overnight or something happens, right? Because it's a long-term investment.
Indeed, absolutely. And really, again, you kind of bridge both the private and public sector, so again, some thoughts from your perspective?
Yeah, well, I think we at present in Denmark have 0.1% of the total amount of trucks, which is electric or hydrogen trucks. So there's still a long way before shifting all of the trucks. As I said, at present, one of the issues is that the electric truck is 3 times more expensive to buy than the diesel truck. So in a transition period and to speed up the process, you would need some sort of public support schemes, which is in place in Germany, which is in place in Sweden, and we are still lagging behind in Denmark. So that's one of the agendas which we are pushing as an association. And another thing, we've talked a lot about trucks, but we still have to remember the passenger cars. We're not finished talking about passenger cars because it's still more or less, even if we have 1 million electric cars in Denmark, the private cars will still be around more than 50% of the emissions from transport sector in Denmark in 2030. So we also have to talk about energy efficiency in personal transport, which would include better public transport in urban areas, bicycling also. So there's not one quick fix solution to this. We need a lot of political instruments to be both energy efficient and to make it more attractive to invest in electric trucks.
What are your thoughts in terms of then, do we either support the cost through subsidy for the more expensive capex immediately, but let's not forget the OPEX is much cheaper, so there is that benefit. But do we support from a subsidy perspective, or do we just punish more those who are polluting?
I think we have to. I think we are open to discuss in a long term whether or not we should shift some of the taxations to, for example, road pricing in Denmark and make. We have to at least tax smarter than we do now. If the fuel taxation is still a lot of the taxation is on the energy content and not on the CO2 emissions. So you can still do a lot with the taxations, but we also have to bear in mind that the road haulage industry and the logistic companies, they are there for reasons. They are there to perform services for the industry to make it attractive for your goods to come out to customers all around the world. So we have to still make, and that was my initial point, that we need a high mobility still, even though we are in a green transition. So we cannot only use the stick in
balance both things. Kimmo, you wanted to make a point?
Yeah, just because every one of us knows that we have no time. So for sure we need to punish those who are polluting, without the question. We need to punish those heavily. But at the same time, we need to give credits to the ones that are moving first. So we need to give subsidies to the ones that are showing the way. But these are the two things. But for sure, I vote for punishing all of you who are driving. Sorry for that.
A big stick, and then you can go get a beer from Peter later. Before closing remarks, any thoughts or any questions from the floor? We have just a little bit of time, so if you could keep a concise question. Sorry, Nina, if you could perhaps pass the microphone. Kimmo, you will. So you'll have to shout next.
So you can't answer.
So if we have 2 questions, see if we can get through those quickly.
Yeah, I don't know if this is a good time to admit having been a politician in Denmark for 15 years. Luckily not now. So I would just want to comment back to you and say that you probably want to be more precise in your advice to the political. I hear you asking for change and stability, and at the same time, which of course is a little difficult, but I think what we were told for a while was that if you lower the prices on electric cars, then everything else will follow. And this is proven wrong. Danes are buying cars that can be charged at a record high number, but they're having problems with the energy companies not being able to service them. So now their hybrid cars are driving on gas. So my question to you is, going back to Rune's initial remark on mobility, because if we look at urban transportation, what it really is a mix of mobility issues. So bearing in mind that we're talking about places where people live on top of each other and therefore cannot charge their car in their own garage, and with a large social divide between people who have can afford all the solutions for themselves and people who can't, what would be your first decision as a Lord Mayor of Copenhagen if you were to promote e-mobility in a huge city?
Thank you. Again, just a brief response actually, because it's an interesting point. As I say, it's about being specific of asks sometimes. And again, we know that there are, if you pass that back to Lasse, actually, he can start. There are solutions for off-street parking and various things, but I think the societal divide is I guess we throw that back at the politicians a little bit. But in reference to the point, a quick response, Lasse?
First of all, yeah, mobility in cities are a lot of things, but if you are specifically talking about e-mobility solutions in cities, I think it's fair to address a misconception that many people still carry around, that you need to charge your vehicle every day and you need to have your own charger to make it work. And I'm the living proof of this not being the case. I live in Copenhagen. I drive 40,000 something kilometers a year in my electric vehicle. And I do not have a charger at home, of course. I have a flat, I live in a flat, so I do not have. So the infrastructure needed is not as massive and extensive as someone might think. And this is again comes back to maybe my earlier point that we need to take into consideration the learnings we already have. So we don't need to invent this as a big issue, something that needs to be tackled with a massive investment. It's not needed, it's not relevant in reality. Lots of people, and from a statistical point of view, the majority of all people owning a car in Copenhagen do not need to charge their vehicle, maybe only need to do it every 7th day or something like that. So again, the problem might not be that big, and we do have the experience and the knowledge to actually deal with it already now. So again, we don't have much time here today, but I fully understand your point, and I also understand that we need to be much more specific in our advice to politicians than we have been so far, and this is something we need to work on, I'm sure.
Thank you, Lasse. Again, I've got one more question I want to take, so if we can respond initially to the point there briefly.
You asked clear advice, so just banned ICEs now. Thank you. So just banned ICEs now. The market will solve your problems afterwards, don't worry. We are there for you.
Thank you, Lasse. Peter?
Yeah, I don't have anything for
Okay.
so,
Rune? Well, I should be able to answer Morten's question here, but I think I would recommend two things to the Lord Mayor of Copenhagen. One, invest in public transportation, invest in bicycling, making energy efficient transport more attractive in the center of Copenhagen. And then make it attractive for road companies to use electric trucks. One of the issues we have in Copenhagen and many other cities in Denmark is that you're not allowed to deliver goods before 7 a.m. in the morning. So the trucks, electric or with the combustion engines, all drive in the rush hour, which makes it less energy efficient in any way. And so make it attractive to use an electric truck before 7 a.m.
Perfect, thank you. Nikolaj, briefly.
Yeah, very shortly, I think Copenhagen and the big cities are one issue, but I think also to make this happen, to have success in this electrical transport overall, it's also a matter of spreading it out to the whole, you can say, country area as well, because I also drive electric cars. I have done it for many years, and a lot of people are asking me, what, if you drive to that location up there, can you then charge? Yes, I can, or no, I can't. But to make the whole electric transportation a success, we need to spread out also in the, you can say, thin areas of Denmark and each and every country.
Okay, thank you. We just have one time for one question, a very quick response.
Thank you so much. It's a very informative session for me. I came from Dubai United Arab Emirates, so this is very new information. So I have two very quick ones. The first one is for EBB. You mentioned about the grid readiness for the electrification. So what about the heavy duty? I think now they would have to charge at the highways, which most of the time are not equipped to accommodate that heavy duty. And now we talk about megawatt charging. Who is the responsibility to actually upgrade the grid for heavy duty vehicles for charging? Or should we go with hydrogen? Even if it's hydrogen, who is the responsibility to do the upgrade of the grid. The second one, very quickly to Danfoss, you usually give the example of Sonneberg as an example of electrification, but what is the percentage of electric fleet in your global fleet, and what's the economic case of that specific percentage, if you have any numbers as well?
Thank you. Again, we're limited on time, so I'll ask you a quick response, and of course, you can always he can always grab you afterwards for a more detailed one. So, a quick word in reply.
It is difficult to answer that quickly, but the infrastructure for heavy vehicle transportation is very complex. It varies from city transportation to long-haul transportations, and it's difficult to answer with one sentence how to do that. But the technology is basically available, and it will become even more so in the not-so-distant future when we will be able to charge heavy vehicles with maybe 1 or 2 gigawatts instead of megawatts instead of what we are doing today. So we can charge them faster, and that will make it possible to go further, I would say, in heavy vehicles as well.
Thank you, Lasse. Thank you.
Just can you repeat the question for?
What's the percentage of electric fleet in your global?
So you mean the company cars, or so the company cars at the moment? I think that it's for us it's in few tens of %, but we have a plan that we will electrify all the cars by 25, if I remember correctly. Hopefully the number is correct, but all the company cars will be electric in Danfoss in. Yes, no, it's a global decision. So that's of course we are in front, and Sonneberg is our headquarters, so everything is here a little bit in front. But we have decisions made in place, and we are one of the front runners in everything what comes to the ESG in the world.
Thank you. Thank you for those questions, and thank you everybody for listening, and for those watching on the live stream. A round of applause if you could for our guests, panelists. And before you rush to grab pieces of beers, maybe people will be around for a conversation if there are any sort of further questions. But thank you very much. Okay. Hvis de var her next as well.